Today, the Pelosi body cam footage is out, and there may be more questions than answers. And Project Veritas drops another video, and let me just tell you, things go off the rails pretty darn quick. We've got all of that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Happy Friday. I am joined right now by my friend Rob Eno, media critic of BlazeTV, and we will be joined shortly by Jaco Booyens later on. But I want to get to the video that everyone's talking about, Rob, this Paul Pelosi body cam footage that they have finally released. Now, remember, they avoided releasing it for a very, very long time, which I'd like to discuss with you after we play what we have that has been released today, because I do think that it is a little odd that they have been fighting this so much. So we've got the body cam footage from when the police show up at the house. We've got the 911 call. I would like to actually, control room, can you guys tell me how long is this 911 audio that we have? So let's listen first. I want to go in chronological order here, right? So let's listen first to some of this 911 phone call between Paul Pelosi and the 911 operator. Listen.
Capitol Police around?
220. No, this is San Francisco.
They usually protect my wife. They're usually here at the house protecting my wife.
No, this is San Francisco Police.
Friday, October.
I understand.
2022.
Okay, well,
0224 and 18 seconds.
I think everything's good.
He said it.
He thinks everything's good.
Everything's good.
I've got a problem, but he thinks everything's good.
Okay. Call us back if you change your mind.
Very odd, because you can tell, I think, that something is off when Paul Pelosi's talking, and the 911 operator, who is supposed to be trained for this, is just like, all right, well, that's cool. Call me back if you have a problem. Let me know. And it's like, hold on a second. I want to play another part of this 911 call, and then I want to get your take on this as well, Rob. Listen.
This gentleman just came into the house, and he wants to wait here for my wife to come home.
0, 2,
and so,
4 and 48.
Anyway, he told me to put the phone down.
Do you know who the person is?
No, I don't know who he is. He has this. He's telling me not to. He's telling me not to do anything.
What is your address, sir?
26.
225 and 0.
What is your name?
Seconds.
My name is Paul Pelosi.
Friday.
Anyway, this gentleman says that he thinks everything ought to, he's telling me to put the phone down and just do what he says.
Pretty disturbing phone call. Again, very wild that the 911 operator did not seem to understand what was going on until possibly the end. That, you can tell Paul Pelosi is like, he's looking for my wife. This is in the full clip that I encourage all of you to go listen to. I've shared it on my Twitter. He says, my wife, Nancy Pelosi. He's making it very clear, like, this is who I am, and I have a strange man in my house.
It's weird. Like, you would think that, I mean, everybody in the there's a lot of people you don't know who they are, but I'm thinking like 75 to 80% of the people in the country know who Nancy Pelosi is, and I'm thinking that if you are a government employee in San Francisco,
living in San Francisco,
that you might know that Nancy Pelosi is somebody that's important, and you might think that the system would show up the address and let you know that that's an important house. You would think that, like, the system, like, they would program some addresses in, and especially when he goes, the Capitol Police are usually here doing protection detail for my wife, Nancy Pelosi. And there's some weird guy that wants to wait for Nancy Pelosi.
Right. And she's like, okay, well, just call me back if you have any problems. It's like, no.
It's so weird.
It's really
and it's
weird.
like every TV show and every movie, it's like, I can't say anything. The person won't let me say anything.
Right.
It's like, that's when it's like, I would imagine he's calling from a landline. Maybe he's calling from a cell phone. And that's a whole thing with 911 and not being landlines anymore. But if it's a landline, they should have the address. He shouldn't have to give the address. The address should pop up with the landline.
I do think they like to confirm, though, just to be sure, even if it is a landline. So that's kind of setting the stage, okay, for I want to play next the surveillance footage for the man, David DePape, who we all know is the alleged, intruder. I want to play for you the surveillance footage of him entering the home. He's carrying the hammer. He very clearly is going up to the glass of the door. And I'll explain something to you about this as we're playing it. Go ahead.
We also have our first look at the video on the attack of Paul Pelosi, husband of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Look at this.
The outside,
now remember I told you that there were going to be
how.
things other than the police body cam that would be
breaking
released.
the glass
This is the
and
surveillance
he's
video
pulling the hammer back out
the
with
home.
the glass,
and
you'll see.
That is the suspect, DePape. And you see him, he put some items
so he's
down,
pulling
you see him breaking some glass and
the glass
fragments
back out.
of glass that are breaking now. Emily, talk to me about
Which again
this as evidence
makes
in the case.
that scene
well,
that
so
we
keep
saw
in mind that this suspect
sense.
is facing federal charges.
So makes that scene make sense. Again, I don't think that I think that questioning things is normal. I think that questioning things is healthy. I think that, for as much as the left wants to call the right conspiracy theorists, anytime you ever have any questions about anything, I would have liked to have seen this day one, right? I think that it would be healthy for the American public to see this day one, because when you see the glass on the other side of the door, naturally you would have questions.
Right.
So I want to play then. Now let's move to the body cam footage. So this is police. They are approaching the home. And Paul Pelosi and David DePape both sort of answer the door at the same time. You'll notice that Paul Pelosi is wearing this is 2:30 in the morning. Paul Pelosi is wearing a dress shirt, buttoned all the way up and no pants, his underwear. David DePape is in shorts and a sweatshirt and does appear to be wearing shoes. And they're both grabbing the hammer. Watch.
How you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope.
Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting any answer on calls.
And that's when the attack happened. So very bizarre scene, because again, perhaps, and this is why I have questions, Rob, right? Because I look at that and I say, Pelosi looks pretty calm.
Yeah.
There is a point where they're both smiling. Could have been a fake smile.
Yeah, I think
right?
it looks like a fake. Yeah,
could have been a fake smile.
Yeah.
But did he threaten him? Did David DePape say, "Hey, if you act weird, I'm gonna kill you"? Still, it's odd because they're both holding a freaking hammer, so that in itself is weird. Answering the door the way that they did was weird. It's weird that Paul Pelosi is in his underwear and a buttoned-up dress shirt and has a drink in his hand. Like, when did he pour the drink? Because we were told previously that he was asleep in bed and that he was awakened by this intruder. So at what point was the drink poured? It just all is very weird. And again, I'm not saying that this is... What happened was heinous and disgusting, and this guy should get the book thrown at him for what he did. I just want to make sure that these questions are being asked, right? Because it just doesn't mesh with what we were told. And I think for a lot of people in America, you just want it to make sense.
Yeah. I go back, I want to step back 1 second to the footage of the outside. Mm-hmm. That's Capitol Police footage, right?
Yes.
Was there is there nobody,
No.
What was the guy sleeping that was supposed to be watching the footage?
Well, so this is another reason that I want these questions answered, because clearly if there are people out there that are targeting lawmakers, and the way that it stands now is that the Capitol Police follow Nancy. So if Nancy is not home, no, there is no one, to my knowledge, there is no one monitoring all of the footage, all of the surveillance cameras that they have. There's no one monitoring the house when the lawmaker is gone. They follow the lawmaker wherever she goes. So if, in fact, there are people out there that are targeting lawmakers specifically, Should we be talking about perhaps extending that protection to their families, to their homes? This isn't the first time that this has happened. You had Rand Paul attacked in his front lawn, right? So I'm just saying, I think that it's important that all of this makes sense so that we can then take all of the information and say, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen to another lawmaker? Because I got to tell you, if a bunch of lawmakers end up seeing that they're being targeted and they have no protection and their families really have no protection, we're not going to get any of the good guys who are volunteering to go run for office and represent us if they know their families could then be a target.
Right. And it's in going back, there's no alarm system. Like, none of that goes off. It's like, okay, like, you got a multi-million-dollar home in San Francisco and you don't have an alarm system on it? It's because you have capital protection most of the time, so you think you don't need it. It's weird. The drink thing, I don't know what the timeline is. He could have poured himself a water or whatever the drink is. I don't know if we know. I didn't see what the drink was, so I don't know if it's an alcoholic beverage, if it's water.
Well, I don't know what it is either,
but he could have poured something when he was, like, talking to the guy. It seems like, I mean, but if you get
if you get that much flexibility from this guy to go and pour yourself a drink, aren't you like running out of the house? Which again, I'm not victim shaming. I'm just saying
it's weird. It's just
all
the whole
so
thing.
Bizarre.
It's really, really. Yeah, it's who knows what goes on in those situations. Maybe the guy really did want to wait for Nancy. He thought Nancy was coming home, and he's like, he didn't want to hurt Paul. Then the cops come, and he goes crazy, and then
then did the cops appearing even escalate things?
It might have. I mean, you don't want to say that, but it might have.
They didn't do the wrong thing. Of course, they should show up.
When you pull up and you say that there's a weird guy in the house, doesn't one of the cops have a gun drawn? Like, that's the other thing that I'm thinking.
Well, and they saw that there was a hammer.
Don't you, like, the guy behind start to draw the gun to, like, I was just shocked that he wasn't put down as he went to grab the hammer. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe, so maybe they did have guns drawn. Yeah. Maybe someone had a gun drawn, but the scuffle, they were so close to each other that they didn't feel like they had a clear shot. But I would like to know the answers to these questions.
We should have seen this before the election. And not because it's the election, but there were so many questions. People shouldn't fight to keep this stuff, and they do it all the time. They do it in Ferguson. They do it in a lot of places where they want to hide the body cam footage. But in something like this, all of these things, we would have had this discussion 5 months ago or 4 months ago when it happened, and not right now. And it's just, it's heinous. Like, I cringed when I saw that. I mean, it just...
Well, because remember, the full footage is very disturbing because you can hear Paul. So a lot of people think that he's snoring. It's actually a type of breathing that people do when they get knocked unconscious and their brain is trying to make sure that they are delivering oxygen to everywhere. And so it sounds like snoring, but it's like when you're in a lot of trauma and it may not be a good outcome. So it's very disturbing to watch the full clip here. But again, the guy's pleading not guilty.
Well, that's kind of hard to do.
I know that. Well, that's why I'm
but you always do that, right? I mean, that's
I guess. I don't know. Or do you plead guilty and go try to go get a lesser charge? You know, do you try to plead down? You probably aren't going to be successful when it's Nancy Pelosi's husband that you just, attacked. But again, I really think that it's important that we understand all of the details of this so that then we can go back and assess and say, what do we need to do to make sure that people who are... I don't think Nancy Pelosi feels that she is a public servant or she was a public servant. I don't believe that to be the case. But the fact of the matter is they're supposed to be public servants, right? And so if people are volunteering to run for office, to be a public servant, they need to know that their families will be safe if someone targets them. I don't think that that's unreasonable. So I hope that we get the answers to these questions. I don't know why we were stonewalled when we asked for the body cam footage, the 911 calls. I myself sent in a FOIA request to San Francisco Police Department, and I was given, I'm sure the same back and forth that all of these journalists were given who went ahead and sued. But again, why did it take this long to get the information? That in itself makes people wonder.
And I think that's the big problem with government. And beyond this is when you stonewall, when you take with the documents on the COVID vaccine, 880 years or whatever they're saying it's going to take to get the records, or when you do a public records request, a FOIA request, you and I have both done them, and they're like, oh, to get those 20 pages of documents will cost you $7,525 in people's time, right? Like they bring that kind of stuff up as well. And they do it because if they would just give the documents and people could look at it, 99.9% of conspiracy theories would go away because you'd have the documents and you'd know what the facts are. By hiding the fact, it breeds people asking questions.
Right. Yeah, and just to clarify, in my case, they said, oh, well, we can't release the footage from an open investigation. And I'm like, you guys literally do it all the time. There will be a shooting that happens, an officer-involved shooting, whatever, and the next week you guys release it. You're not done investigating. So, like, that literally happens all the time. That's a weird answer to give, especially when the person that it happened to is so significant to the country. We'll see how all of this shakes out, but very bizarre. And by the way, I would just like to, I can't stress enough, this was heinous. It was disgusting. It should not have happened. I also think it was heinous that the left immediately tried to put it on the right because it's looking like this potentially was just a literal crazy person, a mentally ill person who for some reason didn't get the help that they needed and unfortunately made the Speaker of the House a target. I don't think that the other side would be so empathetic, but we are. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. I want to thank our sponsor, Eden Pure. So Eden Pure we have in our home. We've got several of them throughout our home because they are what is going to make your home smell good. They take away mold, odors, if you have litter boxes, if you have cats, which I actually have a zoo at my house. My home kind of doubles as a zoo. So we have lots of animals, which sometimes comes with odors, but not if you have Eden Pure because it is going to get rid of those. They actually send out this device. It sends out O3 molecules that go seek out odors and destroy them. It is really, really cool for any of you guys. If you smoke, which you shouldn't, but if you do, Eden Pure is going to work for you. If you've got animals, Eden Pure is going to work for you. Put it in your kitchen when you're cooking. It will work there as well. Trust me, I know we cook a lot of Brussels sprouts in my house. All right, right now you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. You can get 3 units for under $200. You can put one wherever you need it. That is EdenPureDeals.com. Put in discount code Sarah3 to save $200. That is EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Sarah3. All right, yesterday we brought to you the Project Veritas latest with, this was Jordon Trishton Walker, who is the Director of Worldwide R&D, Research and Development, Strategic Operations, and mRNA Scientific Planning. First of all, I don't know how they fit that on a business card, because that is quite the mouthful. But over at Pfizer is where he works. And we watched, I'm sure you guys watched yesterday, we watched this guy explain that they were, I don't know, working on what we would call gain of function, but now the new hotness is, gain of function is old and busted. The new hotness is now directed evolution. And so he was explaining that they were just directed evolution, they were directing evolution by kind of splicing together to try to create a new variant of COVID so that they could have the vaccine readily available right there. Pretty explosive stuff if true. And so they were on their third date well, he thought it was a date, but clearly he was just with the Project Veritas undercover, which is quite embarrassing in and of itself. But so we saw all of this unfold, okay? But what we didn't see was the video that was released yesterday, was the aftermath of that third date where James O'Keefe confronts Jordon Trishton Walker. So I want to play for you. There's a moment in this date where Walker starts to get a little suspicious, starts going, hold on, what's going on here? Like, there are a bunch of conservative organizations that like do this kind of spy stuff. So I just want to make sure everything's good. Let's watch that.
What is going on here? Like, that feels like an interview. I don't know, it's freaking me out. I mean, these like flashbacks to that like sting organization of like those conservative people who like randomly go into organizations and then like befriend people who work in these organizations and then report them, which happened to people at Pfizer. So it's like freaks me out when people start asking a lot of questions about work. It's so great.
Really? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Because I just want to know the answer.
They're not probably reporting me. Oh my God, Jason, that'd be horrible. You better not be reporting me.
Starts to get a little bit scared of what's going on. And it only, trust me when I tell you, it only gets worse from there. It just turns into a complete dumpster fire when James O'Keefe comes out to confront this guy in real time. Watch.
Hey there. Is this seat taken? What? Hi. You work for Pfizer. My question for you is, why does Pfizer want to hide from the public the fact that they're mutating the COVID viruses?
Is this real life? What is happening here?
Why?
What is going on here? This is absurd.
Why does Pfizer want to hide from the public that they're mutating the COVID virus?
Oh my God.
You're on video. You're on video.
Pfizer ultimately is thinking about
Mutating the COVID virus.
What is going on here? I need to call the police.
He needs to call the police because he's been recorded in a public space. Want to play for you kind of the aftermath. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to need to go to my Twitter and watch the whole video that I've retweeted on there. It is so bonkers crazy. He says, I need to call the police. The restaurant owner's telling James O'Keefe to leave. The guy is arguing with the restaurant owner, saying like, no, he can't leave because I've called the police. Don't let him leave. He locks him in there at one point, and James O'Keefe is like, I'm just trying to get out. Can you please get out? And this guy goes and ultimately tries to destroy the iPad that James O'Keefe is showing him, which, by the way, great job, Project Veritas, for doing all of this on the fly, having the footage right there to show him. Really, really impressive. But I guess he thinks that like maybe if he deletes the iPad, the footage is just magically gone or something. So let's watch that.
Please unlock the door.
Give me what is going on
some
here?
stuff. Please unlock the door. Please unlock the door. 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 Unlock the door.
He hit my head.
This is remarkable here. Thank you. Thank you. They're trying to unlock the door. Unlock the door. Unlock the door. Unlock the door.
Like that. It is not.
It is such a leftist thing to do, to be literally trying to grab someone else's private property, and as the person's trying to grab it back, he's like, he hit my head. There was another part where he said that he felt unsafe, and then immediately asked the restaurant owner to lock the door, which I don't think is advisable if you feel unsafe to lock the person that is making you feel unsafe in a room with you. I'm not sure that that is advisable whatsoever. I want to welcome to the program Jaco Puyens, BlazeTV contributor and host of The Bottom Line, who brought me beautiful flowers today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Made my day. But I wanted, did you watch this whole video?
Yeah, and the irony for me, just the whole thing, it starts with, I'm gonna call the police. Now, you're the defund the police crowd, remember? You don't get to call the police. I just always, it's just so funny. But yeah, great job, James and the whole team. I think we're gonna see more and more of this. You know, James writes that this is the most viral video ever. To your point, it's funny that he grabs it and always claims victimhood. Always. They're the victim. You just admitted that you guys inflicted harm on possibly tens, not hundreds of millions of people, and you're somehow the victim now because someone is catching you with your hand in the cookie jar.
Or at least they want to. They want to inflict harm. If what he said was true, because just for context, he did, when James O'Keefe approached him, he did, as you would imagine that someone would say, even if they were telling the truth, they're telling company secrets, right? So he's like, I'm a liar. I'm literally a liar. I'm a liar. Then he goes bonkers crazy, panics, destroys the iPad. Then he even takes it a step further. He goes and stops cars outside. He walks into the street. Yeah. And stops the car because he thinks that James O'Keefe was in it. And then it's like, well, what were you going to do exactly once you confronted him? Obviously, a guy panicked for losing his job, right?
Oh yeah, no.
But if you know you're lying and you know that that is not what Pfizer is doing, do you go to that extreme? Do you have that sort of visceral, emotional reaction if you're just like, yeah, I was just lying to impress a date? Sorry about that.
Yeah, this whole thing's crazy, right? I mean, this is how Project Veritas works. They get very attractive people to go on dates with people. I mean, the standard operating procedure, I would imagine, if you work for a thing like that, is, I'm under NDA. I mean, but if they throw like Scarlett Johansson at you, maybe you'll start talking, right? But that's kind of what they do.
Or
but this
in this case, maybe Chris Pratt.
Or Chris Pratt, or whatever it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, this guy obviously knew that he was saying stuff. And the reason that it's believable is you'll remember Glenn's special on this whole thing with the vaccines and Wuhan and all that. That's what they were trying to do, is they were trying to do directed evolution, gain of function, play God, whatever you want to call it, by throwing stuff in mammals, making them get viruses, and then extracting it so they can create vaccines. I mean, this is what they do. So you know that what he's saying is what they've already done. So that's why it sounds so believable. I might be the only one at the table, but a little bit of me kind of feels bad for the guy. Like it's like
you might be. The
I
only
might
one
be
at the
the only
table,
one
right.
at the table that I mean,
I don't feel bad for him at all.
I can see some of the overreaction because you, like you said, you know your whole world is about to crash. You're probably drunk. I think he says I'm kind of a little tipsy. You get some impairment when you're drunk. You don't know what's going on. I get the overreaction. It's still crazy to watch. But I can see kind of where it's coming from.
Right, but recall that this is the same guy who in the rest of the story, right, was like, yeah, it's bad for the American people, but it's really good for us. And he laughs about it, right?
Remember,
he laughs about it. I have no sympathy for this man.
And that's my point. This is the third date. It's not the first.
Right.
He said a lot. He knows what he's saying is true, and I completely believe what he's saying, and I actually believe that they followed through on it, Sarah. His behavior to me is akin to somebody, you talk about gain of function, that's losing function.
Yeah, you get caught.
He's lost all cognitive function, and it's fight or flight at that time, and he's completely out of his mind. He would run in front of a train and try and stop a train
he
at
did.
that moment.
He ran in front of an SUV.
He did. But his mind there is, how do I fix this now? Fix it, and you can't fix it.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
It's kind of like a pregnancy. It's done, right? I mean, so there you go. And so he's out of his mind, and unfortunately, just akin to what we've seen in 2021-22, when you corner the left, they do lose their minds, and at times they get violent because they are completely outside of themselves. I believe everything he said, he was speaking the truth because he was speaking to a potential lover. He was wooing somebody. He was impressing somebody.
Which the other argument is you're impressing someone.
Yeah,
So
you might stretch the truth.
But then you don't behave that way.
Well, you also don't, I'm sorry, but you lie about being really sinister and evil and, creating variants just for a cash cow. Like that, I don't think would impress someone, who did you think you were on a date with? Satan? That's not going to impress anyone. And I do want to add really quickly, so there was a Twitter space last night that I was a part of with Project Veritas. James O'Keefe was there. There were a lot of people there, but Matt Gaetz was in it as well. But I was able to ask James himself, have you guys showed this? Have you talked to any legislators? Are we going to see investigations? Because Project Veritas is doing God's work. They are the only ones on the ground getting this footage. And God bless them for that. I appreciate their work so much. But if we don't have the other mechanism, making sure that there is accountability and we don't have investigations just to make sure this isn't going on, because if it's not, it would be very easy to prove that it's not going on, and that would be the end of it, right? So if we don't have lawmakers pushing for these investigations and there's no accountability, James O'Keefe can expose whatever the hell he wants all day long. It's not going to matter. I mean, it'll matter, but it won't matter. Nothing will
because of the
news
news cycle.
The media won't. The media won't like it. And to that point, what this proves is, now they have somebody whose emails they can get. They have somebody whose records they can get if they decide to investigate.
Yes.
Well,
on Capitol Hill. Yeah. So
this is where 100% agree with Sarah on this. This is because of our news cycle. Sarah often says, hey, as of this taping, because things may change 4 minutes from now, it's out of sight, out of mind for the American public. And this is where we had this conversation one time before on some people that on the transgender thing in Drag Queen Story Hour for Kids. It's almost like you want Christian Hartstock, who does the grunt work at Project Veritas, and James to work with legislators to say, hey, this is coming. This is coming 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. Almost like you run a bill.
Right, yeah.
Let's surround the support around this, so when we break it, it's fuel for you guys to go and do something, versus it catches everybody off guard. It's amazing work, but the sad part is, there's something new tomorrow. You're going to talk about something else here Monday, and it just keeps rolling through, unfortunately.
And that's where this movement misses Andrew Breitbart, because you'll remember the Project Veritas Sting videos with HUD. I talked to Andrew after that happened, and it was Andrew quarterbacking that. It was Andrew saying, hold it back because they're going to tell you that this didn't happen, and then you can release the video that says that this happened, and they're going to tell you that this doesn't do, because he could see far into the future and do that sort of stuff. The movement misses Andrew.
The strategy.
Yeah, because Andrew was a brilliant strategist when it came to that sort of thing, kind of talking to what you're talking about now.
Yeah, well, I cannot say enough good things about Project Veritas's work, and I just appreciate it so much. I would encourage all of you guys to support them however you can, and we've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure. But I wouldn't say that. But no straight guy.
Colorado baker Jack Phillips of Masterpiece Cake Shop lost his appeal with the Colorado Court of Appeals yesterday. He had previously won, you may recall the name Jack Phillips Masterpiece Cake Shop. You may be going, where have I heard this name before? He previously won a partial Supreme Court victory after refusing to bake a cake for a gay couple's wedding because, of course, of his Christian faith. And so they had said that, basically this was his expression. It violated his religion, and he was not going to be forced to bake the cake. I want to make this very clear because a lot of people get this story wrong. He didn't refuse service to these people, right? They could have come in and they could have bought any number of cakes that he had available to purchase. It was just the fact that they wanted him to make the custom wedding cake for the gay marriage, okay? Because a lot of people are like, well, you don't have the right to deny people service. He didn't deny them service. Although I don't know why they would want to go and give him money if he doesn't, right? It's like, well, perhaps that's because that's not what it's about at all to them. It is about something much more sinister. So as all of this was going on, back in, 2017, whenever it was, there was a transgender female, so this is a male, a biological male, who calls himself Autumn Scardina, who requested for Jack Phillips to bake him a cake to celebrate his transition from male to female. Of course, the same thing happened. He said no, and this time, the courts did not rule in his favor, at least in Colorado. They said, we conclude that creating a pink cake with blue frosting is not inherently expressive, and any message or symbolism it provides to an observer would not be attributed to the baker. So we will see where this ends up. You got to believe it's going to keep going up and up and up and up until we get more guidance from the Supreme Court again.
This is what the left does. They tell us Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. You can't have laws that go against Roe v. Wade because the Supreme Court decided and you can't do anything. Time and time and time and time and time again, the Supreme Court decides in favor of a conservative cause, or whatever you want to say it, that the Constitution supports your right to not bake a cake, the Constitution supports your right to carry a gun, the Constitution supports your right to do a bunch of things. And time again, people like Gavin Newsom wants to take away all guns now in California. Time and time again, after the Supreme Court has ruled and said, no, it's your fundamental right to have a gun, they try to do new laws that do it. They make people into criminals for having a bump stock on their pistol, even though we know that that's against the Constitution because you're allowed to keep and bear arms. They do it with things like this cake baker. The Supreme Court said that his artistic impression says that he doesn't have to bake a cake for somebody that doesn't believe what their agreements were. This isn't, and it goes to his artistic expression. Putting the blue food coloring inside the cake, or the pink food coloring inside the cake with the blue outside, is you can argue, is an artistic. It is an artistic thing. And they're forcing him to choose between feeding his family and violating his faith, and it's abhorrent. But they'll keep doing it. He will get told that he can't do it now, and they'll go back and they'll go at him again.
Well, but because the entire reason, as much as they want to say, all we want is to love who we love. That's all we want. No. That's the only. We just want the same civil rights as you. No, they don't, because they're specifically targeting this guy to get back at him for revenge, for retribution. Because if you do not follow their new rules for society, you will be punished, and they will make sure that you are bankrupted and that you lose everything because you don't believe what they believe. That's a far cry from, we just want the right to love who we love.
Sarah, in that community, of all communities, you probably have the best cake bakers in the world are probably gay. You could probably have 1,000 stores you could go to.
And you could pay them money.
And you can pay them money and support your own community. right? And go get a phenomenal cake, but it's not what it's about. It's about we must force you to think like we think. So we're going to seek out the one that draws a line in the sand, and we're going to ostracize him. But it is an artistic expression. So I want to ask this. Hey, Billie Eilish. Hey, Madonna. Hey, Lady Gaga. Your artistic expression, we need you to sing at the next Trump rally. And you can't say no because it's your artistic expression. That's insane. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? Because it's art. The recipe, maybe his personal recipe passed down from grandma. It's his love that he pours into a cake, etc., etc. Because the argument's not buy a cake from my store. No, you must take your talent under my direction, and I must conquer you. You must make a cake for me. It's insane. It must stop. We have to draw a line in the sand, because where does it really stop? Otherwise, let's play this game.
Right.
Let's go to Bruce Springsteen. Say, hey, Springsteen. Your buddy Obama is no longer your buddy. Your buddy's now Trump. You're going to bring your fan base.
Not even Trump, but let's make it a religious thing, right?
Well, let's make it a religious thing. I now need you to only sing Christian songs because I need you to, because I like your voice, Bruce Springsteen. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Earlier this week, at a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing to consider several federal court nominations, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana asked one of the judicial nominees, I would say, some pretty basic questions about the Constitution, which, you know, I don't know. Maybe this is a high bar for judges, but I feel like if you have a judge that's trying to determine things like law and constitutionality, they should probably know the Constitution, but that did not seem to be the case for this particular judge. Watch.
Article 5 is not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. How about Article 2?
Neither is Article 2.
Okay. Do you know what purposivism is?
In my 12 years as an assistant attorney general and my 9 years serving as a judge, I was not faced with that precise question. We are the highest trial court in Washington state, so I'm frequently
that wasn't
faced
the question.
with
I don't feel like that was the
issues that I'm not familiar with, and I thoroughly review the law, research, and apply the law to the facts presented to me.
Okay, so I don't think that he asked her for her resume. I think the question was, do you know enough about the Constitution to be able to hold this job? I'm just saying, like, when I go for a job interview, I make sure that I am prepped, that I know about the job that I am supposed to, you know, be doing, that I know the basics, which I feel like, you know, Article 5, amending the Constitution, and how you would go about doing that. Article 2 about, you know, the executive branch and the separation of powers and everything. And it's just like, I don't know. You know what? I do know where he found this woman. She's a woman. Well, I don't know how she identifies, but she's very clearly a woman, and she appears to be a person of color. So she is a woman of color, which I'm sure from the Biden administration's track record, they determined her to be qualified enough to be in this position of power, when in actuality, she's another Karine Jean-Pierre and has absolutely no idea what is going on at any given time.
It's honorable. Charnelle Bjelkengren, right? Honorable. She's a judge. This should be rudimentary. Right. She's a judge, and you're going into a hearing. Maybe you cram studied just a little bit the night before the hearing. If you think, dang, what if they asked me about some of the articles? You're a judge for 9 years. 9 years, you don't know the Constitution? You shouldn't have that job. Never mind the job you're about to be nominated for to go to, right? But this is the kind of judges that they have hired.
I will admit that I allowed myself to get sucked into Twitter yesterday over this. And what a lot of the left-leaning attorneys that I was interacting said is, well, it's not her job to know exactly what's in the Constitution. It's her job to apply the exact laws in the case, which is what she was trying to say. And I tried to make the argument that I learned about this in high school civics class. And they don't teach high school civics class anymore. But I mean, in high school civics class, I had to know that Article 1 dealt with the the Congress. Article 2 dealt with the executive. Article 3 dealt with the judiciary. Article 4 dealt with the relations between the states. Article 5 is how you amend it. And Article 6 deals with debt and obligations owed under the Constitution. These are things that we were taught at one point in time.
In primary school.
In primary school, in high school, in junior high.
But think about how many other schools this woman has gone to.
Exactly.
Right?
She's been hired. She's been a judge for 9 years. Rob,
the highest
basic citizenship. Basic citizenship.
Article 2 is in my citizen exam.
Yeah.
To become a citizen, Article 2 was in my citizen branches of government, separation of powers. To become a citizen.
This is the executive branch. This is their powers and responsibilities.
There's zero excuse for this woman. She's a judge for 9 years. She's been through college.
Right.
I mean,
what this shows, though, is this is a glaring example of where we as a society have become, because it's a democracy if you can keep it. It's a republic if you can keep it. We used to have an informed citizenry. And a republic, a representative democracy, a representative republic needs an informed citizenry. It needs somebody that knows these things. We have gotten to the place where we are giving everybody free money. People don't know anything. We don't teach it. And it's by design.
100%.
Our form of government was not designed for an immoral people or an uninformed, uneducated people. It doesn't work.
Yeah, they're always like, get out and vote, even if you... No. If you're not informed, please don't vote. Actually, that's the last thing I want. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back. I mean, that's fine. You can call me that. Joe Biden attempted to take a shot at President Trump yesterday over the economy and national debt, but he kind of had a little bit of a Joe Biden gaffe and ended up, I guess, knocking himself. Watch.
Look. Under my predecessor, the last guy that was president, the deficit went up 4 years in a row, accounting for 40% of the entire 200 years of debt. You hear me?
Yes, you're on a microphone. We hear you.
No president added more to the debt in 4 years than my president. I misspoke. 25% of it.
Oh, okay. He misspoke, but it was for the number.
Accumulated over 200 years.
Okay.
Added by the last administration in just 4 years. On my watch, we've taken a different path with Don's help.
What do you mean? You just said no one has done more than my president, which is you.
We cut the deficit by $1.7 trillion.
God, this guy is so... They're just lying to you. They're just lying to you. And for all that they want to talk about, the Republicans have done all of these things. They're making you pay more in taxes. They're adding more. First of all, they've only got the House. Second of all, it's January, right? And they only have the House. They have not put through any legislation that has been of detriment to American families right now. It's just the Democrats. And still, they spew this garbage. And what's worse is that many people actually believe them because they say it.
Yeah, 100%. Look, no excuses, Rob. We have been fiscally irresponsible for a long time.
Both parties.
Okay, both parties. And Trump spent like a sailor. I mean,
and we also brought that up at the time.
100%. But this guy is outspending him. We said $96 billion into the great abyss, unaccounted for. Forget about that. We're just hiring people and printing money like it's...
He's also sending all of our money to another country.
Exactly. Right. I mean, so this guy has outspent. The fact that he's cut the deficit, hogwash. Absolute nonsense.
Rob?
My thing watching that video is the hardest job in Washington has to be being the sign language interpreter for Joe Biden. Like, how do you turn those words into coherent sign in real time?
That's a great point.
I was watching that, like, she was like, what? Huh? I guess I'll do that, right?
Yeah,
it's like that's got to be the hardest job. But you're absolutely right. We have a uniparty in Washington. We don't have two parties. It's the state uber alles.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.